What do you mean she got sent home because her hair was too bright? That's not a reason to send someone home. Carson Steele's voice was low but sharp as he sat behind his office desk. A thick folder of HR reports spread in front of him. 16 sushi bars carried his family's name. His father had built the chain from a single strip mall storefront 30 years ago. Carson inherited it 5 years ago when his dad passed, and he'd tried to honor the legacy.
But now?
Now he felt like he was losing control. The report that triggered him today wasn't about profit margins or logistics. It was about a 19-year-old hostess named Naomi who'd been sent home from the downtown location because, according to the manager, her neon pink hair wasn't professional enough for her image. That wouldn't have raised Carson's alarm by itself, but this was the third time someone had been written up for petty appearance issues at that location. He rubbed his jaw, thinking. He'd never personally met most of the floor staff. With 16 locations, he couldn't be in every place at once. And with so many new hires after COVID, people didn't know his face, especially not now that he'd grown out a beard, dyed his hair a dull brown, and swapped his usual button-downs for faded jeans and thrift store hoodies. That gave him an idea. "I'm done reading reports," he muttered. "I need to see it for myself." 2 days later, Carson walked into the sushi bar on Oak Street as Jared, a freelance web designer looking for a quick lunch. The place looked clean enough, a modern setup with a sushi bar up front and small booths lining the walls. The staff didn't know what he really looked like. He hadn't been to this location in person since the grand opening 2 years ago, and most of the team had turned over at least once since then. He took a seat at the sushi bar and glanced around. A girl with pink hair, clearly Naomi, stood behind the host's stand, her smile tight, like she was forcing it. No one was talking to her. A tall chef behind the counter was barking orders in a gruff tone, flicking his knife through fish with speed but little care. Carson noticed the way the younger staff flinched when he raised his voice. A waiter walked past, and Carson flagged him down. "Can I get the chef's choice sashimi platter?" The waiter nodded and turned to the head chef. "Chef Milo, 1 sashimi platter, chef's choice." Milo didn't look up. "Use the leftover yellowtail from yesterday. It's still good." Carson froze. The words were casual, tossed out like nothing. But his stomach turned. The waiter hesitated. "Chef, I think we tossed that stuff this morning." "No, it's in the back fridge. Use it. Don't waste product." The waiter glanced around nervously, then walked off. Carson's heart pounded. That wasn't just a bad call, it was a serious health risk. Serving raw fish that had been sitting overnight? He didn't even want to imagine what would have happened if someone got sick. He stood up and walked toward the restroom, but instead of going in, he slipped around the corner and leaned against the wall, breathing hard. That's when he saw Naomi standing near the back exit, wiping her eyes. He approached slowly. "Hey, you okay?" She glanced up, startled.
Oh,
Yeah, just allergies." He gave a small nod. "I saw what happened earlier, with the chef." Naomi looked down. "It's like that every day." "We're not supposed to question him." "Why not?" "Because he makes the rules here. Doesn't matter what corporate says. He tells people to reuse fish, skip breaks, not speak up. And if anyone complains, they disappear from the schedule." Carson felt a cold anger rising in his chest. Naomi pulled herself up straighter. "But I'm staying. I need this job. I can't afford to quit." He looked at her, really looked. She was young, but there was steel in her voice. Courage, even if she didn't know it yet. Back at the sushi bar, his sashimi plate had arrived. He stared at the pale slices of fish glistening on the plate, untouched. Milo walked past him behind the counter and gave him a quick glance. "You gonna eat that or just admire it?" Carson slowly pushed the plate away. "Actually, I just remembered I'm allergic to yellowtail. My bad." He stood up and walked toward the exit, but not before catching the waiter's eye and giving a meaningful nod toward the plate. Outside, the air was sharp with early spring chill. Carson pulled out his phone and called his assistant. "Put a hold on my schedule next week. I'm going back in. As a trainee this time. I want to work under Milo. Are you sure? His assistant asked. That guy's been with the company 9 years. All the more reason, Carson said. If this is what a 9-year veteran thinks is okay, then we've got bigger problems than I thought. He hung up and stared at the glass door in front of him. Something was rotting, and it wasn't just the fish. The following Monday, Carson walked through the back entrance of the Oak Street Sushi bar wearing a black apron and a name tag that read J. His beard disguised his face well, and he darkened his hair even more. The general manager, a wiry man named Lucas, barely glanced at him before handing him a laminated training checklist and pointing toward the prep area. You're shadowing Arturo today, Lucas said. He's one of our line cooks. Don't touch anything raw unless he tells you to. Understand? Carson nodded and headed toward the prep station. Arturo, a broad-shouldered man in his 30s with a quiet intensity, was already slicing cucumbers into impossibly thin ribbons. He looked up, gave a curt nod, then pointed to a stack of carrots. Julienne, these. Uniform cuts. Show me the first batch before you finish the rest. Carson got to work. He'd done this kind of prep before during his teenage summers when his father made him learn the business from the ground up. His hands weren't as fast as Arturo's, but his technique held up. Not bad, Arturo said after inspecting the first batch. Most new hires don't know the difference between a julienne and a dice. You've been here long? Carson asked casually, keeping his eyes on the cutting board. 8 months. Transferred from the West Loop store. Arturo's tone was clipped, functional. Oak Street's got good traffic, but it's rougher behind the line. How so? Arturo didn't answer immediately. Instead, he gestured toward the walk-in cooler. Grab a tray of salmon from the bottom shelf. Carson stepped inside the cooler. The air was frigid, and the floor was slick with condensation. He found the tray, but as he pulled it out, he noticed a second tray tucked behind it. The fish on that one wasn't properly wrapped. The edges were drying out, and a faint acidic smell rose from it. He left it untouched and brought the fresh tray back. Arturo eyed him. You saw the bad batch. Yeah. Leave it. Chef doesn't toss anything until it's unusable, which basically means until someone complains. Carson kept his voice neutral. That doesn't sit right. Arturo gave a shrug. It's not my kitchen. I just try not to get yelled at. By mid-morning, Carson had moved to the dish pit, rotating through the trainee stations. The dishwasher, a soft-spoken woman named Jean, looked exhausted. Her hands were red from constant exposure to hot water, and she wore a wrist brace on her left arm. You okay? Carson asked as he loaded a rack beside her. I'll manage, Jean replied without looking up. As long as I don't fall behind. If I do, Milo starts timing me. Carson frowned. Timing you? She nodded. He keeps a stopwatch in his coat. Says if we can't handle the volume, he'll cut hours and bring in people who can. How many hours are you getting now? 28. Used to be 35, but I got injured last month. Never fully recovered. Carson studied her movements. She was favoring her left side, using her right hand for almost everything. Did you file a report? Jean shook her head. Didn't want the trouble. Just needed to keep my hours. Carson didn't say anything else. He helped her run 3 more racks, then rotated to front of house training. The host stand had a new face today. A young man named Devin was covering, wearing a stiff smile under eyes that looked like they hadn't slept in days. Lucas approached them, peering at the seating chart. You triple sat section 2 again. Devin flinched. I didn't realize table 13 hadn't closed out yet. Then pay attention. I don't want to hear any more excuses. Lucas turned to Carson.
You.
Bus table 6.
Now.
Carson moved quickly. Table 6 had just cleared out, but the mess was substantial. Crumpled napkins, spilled soy sauce, and scattered chopsticks. As he cleaned, He heard murmurs from the server station. "She's just standing there again," one of the servers whispered. "How does she get away with that?" Carson glanced over. A woman in her late 20s, with perfectly styled hair and a spotless apron, leaned against the beverage cooler. She scrolled on her phone, ignoring the chaos around her. "That's Taylor," Devin muttered when Carson returned. "She's Lucas's cousin. Works maybe half her shifts, but no one says anything because of who she is." "Does she take tables?" "Only the good ones. Sections near the window. High spenders." Carson watched as Taylor finally moved, only to walk over to the POS system and punch in a comp for a dessert she hadn't served. "You see that?" Devin said under his breath.
She does it all the time.
Rings it up, comps it, and pockets the tip. Carson didn't respond. He walked to the back, found Lucas near the bar, and asked, "Why's Taylor comping items she doesn't serve?" Lucas narrowed his eyes. "You got a problem, trainee? Just seems off."
She knows what she's doing.
"You don't." Carson held the stare for a moment, then turned and walked away. He didn't need to push further.
Not yet.
By late afternoon, the tension in the back of house had climbed. Orders were backing up, and Milo was in full command mode. "Arturo, where's the damn unagi?" "Still on the grill." 40 seconds. "Unacceptable. I called it 3 minutes ago." "You called it before the ticket was even printed." Milo slammed a ladle onto the stainless counter. "You want to run this kitchen, or do you want to go work at a taco truck?" Arturo didn't answer. Carson stood near the sink, wiping down a cutting board. He caught Naomi's eye as she passed, now in server uniform. She looked tense. "Everything okay?" he asked quietly. "I'm fine." But her hand was shaking as she picked up a drink tray. Moments later, a loud crash rang out. A glass had shattered near table 14. Naomi stood frozen, eyes wide. Lucas stormed over. "What the hell happened?" I just slipped." The tray tipped. Lucas looked down at the soaked floor, then back up at her. "You're lucky it didn't hit a guest. Get in the back."
Now.
"She didn't do anything wrong," Carson said. Lucas turned to him. "You don't speak for her. And you don't tell me how to run my floor." Naomi walked off head low. Carson followed after a pause, slipping into the hallway that led to dry storage. She stood there, arms wrapped around herself. "Don't worry about the glass," he said. "It happens. He's been looking for a reason," she whispered. "They always find one eventually." Carson nodded slowly. "Not this time." He returned to the kitchen. Milo was berating Arturo again, this time over a garnish. "That's not how I plate the spicy tuna. It's supposed to curve."
Curve.
Arturo muttered something under his breath and walked away. Carson stepped forward, grabbing a clean knife. "You know, chef, I've worked at a few places. Never saw someone so worried about a garnish while cutting corners on the fish." Milo looked up sharply. "You trying to be funny?"
No.
"Just trying to understand your priorities." "Let me explain something, new guy." Milo stepped forward, voice low. "You don't question me. You do what I say when I say it." Carson held his gaze. "Even when it puts the business at risk?" That was enough. He turned, walked out to the floor, and raised his voice just loud enough to be heard across the restaurant. "Can I have everyone's attention?" The room stilled. Servers turned. Cooks paused. Even Lucas stepped out from the office. Carson pulled off his name tag. "My name is Carson Steele. I own this place." Silence. Milo blinked.
What?
"You heard me, and I've seen enough." Carson looked around the room and locked eyes with Jean, then Naomi, then Arturo. "The way some of you have been treated here, intimidated, overworked, lied to, is unacceptable. It ends now." Lucas stepped forward, his face pale. "You can't just, you're done," Carson said flatly. "Pack your things." Taylor stood frozen near the register, her phone still in her hand. You too, he said. Your shift's over. Permanently. He turned back to the kitchen. Milo, I want your knives on the counter. You're finished here. I won't have anyone endangering customers, threatening staff, or cutting corners on my watch. Milo opened his mouth, but the words never came. He yanked off his apron and stormed out. Carson looked around. The room was still silent. He took a breath. For the rest of you, if you've been afraid to speak up, now's the time. That fear stops today. Carson stood in the center of the dining room, the lingering silence heavy around him. The moment after his reveal had cracked something open, a pause thick with confusion, disbelief, and the unspoken question hanging in the air. What now? He didn't wait long. Jean, he said, turning toward the dish station. Clock out. I'm sending you home for the rest of the day.
Paid.
Your wrist needs time, not pressure. She blinked, stunned. But the dinner shift will adjust. And tomorrow, you'll be working prep only, no more dish duty until your hands healed. Arturo stepped forward from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. Sir, I've got a grill shift tonight. If she's out, we're short. I know. I'll help fill the gap. Carson looked over his shoulder. And we'll bring someone in from another location starting tomorrow morning. This stops being a place that sacrifices people just to keep up appearances. He turned back to the staff. I want a 15-minute break for every person who hasn't had one today. Starting now. I'll cover the floor. There was a beat of hesitation, then slow movement. Servers drifted toward the back. Devin gave him a cautious nod as he passed. Naomi lingered. You sure about this? She asked, voice low. Completely, Carson said. Go breathe. Once the floor cleared, Carson turned toward the host's stand and picked up a clipboard. He scanned the seating chart, watching as a couple stepped through the front door. Without missing a beat, he greeted them and led them to a booth near the window. It had been years since he'd worked a front-of-house shift, but the rhythm came back faster than expected. Halfway through taking their drink order, he noticed Taylor hovering near the POS system, arms crossed, phone still in her hand. I thought I was clear, he said as he walked over. You don't work here anymore. You're making a mistake, she said, eyes narrowed. I've been here longer than half the staff. Doesn't matter. You exploited the system and treated this like a side hustle. That's not how we run things. She stepped back, lips tight. You'll regret this. No, he said, turning away. They would've. By the time the staff returned from break, the atmosphere had shifted. The tension hadn't vanished. It would take more than one afternoon for that, but something had cracked open. Conversations flowed more naturally. Arturo took charge of the line with quiet efficiency. Naomi returned to the floor, her movements more grounded. Even Devin's voice carried a little more strength when he greeted a new table. Carson stayed through the dinner prep, rotating between assisting the kitchen and checking in with servers. At one point, he found Arturo running down the new inventory list. Why did Milo keep ordering frozen scallops? Arturo asked, flipping the sheet toward Carson. We've got a vendor 2 miles away who'll deliver fresh, same day. Carson frowned. No clue. We'll change that. Arturo hesitated. Can I ask something? Of course. Is this just for show? You here doing all this? Or are you actually going to stay involved? Carson leaned against the counter. You ever had someone walk into your house, tell you how to live, then vanish the next day?
Yeah.
Twice. I'm not doing that. Arturo gave a single nod before returning to his prep. It wasn't trust, not yet. But it was movement. Later that evening, Carson sat in the back office, finally alone. The room still bore traces of Lucas's presence, a half-drunk energy drink on the desk, passive-aggressive notes taped to the filing cabinet. He opened the manager's drawer and found a clipboard with last month's schedules. It confirmed what Jean had hinted at: unbalanced shift loads, repetitive double shifts for the same employees, and suspicious gaps that conveniently aligned with Taylor's late arrivals and early exits. He took photos of everything and sent them to his HR director with a short note. Audit Oak Street. Full review. Don't delay. A knock at the door pulled his attention. Naomi peeked in. Didn't mean to interrupt, she said. Just wanted to ask, what happens tomorrow? Carson closed the drawer. Tomorrow, we bring in a temporary floor manager from the Lincoln Park store. Someone I trust. We'll hold meetings, listen to whoever wants to speak, and start rebuilding this place from the ground up. She nodded slowly. And the pink hair thing? Wear whatever color you want. As long as you're respectful, you're welcome here. She smiled, not forced this time, but quick and real before she dipped her head and disappeared down the hall. Carson stepped outside just after closing. The air was cooler now, streetlights blinking on as the last of the customers filtered out into the night. Arturo locked the back door and joined him near the alley. You sure you want to keep this place open during the transition? Arturo asked. We're going to be stretched thin. I'm sure, Carson said, but we'll scale the menu down temporarily. Focus on what we can do well. I'd rather serve fewer dishes with pride than keep pretending we're something we're not. What about the kitchen lead? Carson folded his arms, considering. I was thinking, you've got steady hands. You understand the team. And you've got integrity. I'd like you to step up. Interim role for now, with a raise. Arturo looked away for a beat. No offense, but why me? Because today you didn't flinch. You kept the line moving, you protected the food, and you didn't let ego get in the way. That's leadership. Arturo gave a slow breath, then finally nodded.
All right.
I'll do it. But only if I can train a few guys under me. I don't want to be the only one who knows how to run this.
Deal.
They shook hands. As Carson walked back to his car, his shoulders ached from the long shift, but his mind was sharper than it had been in months. There were still problems to solve, a long list, but the worst of the rot had been cut out. Tomorrow would be harder, but at least it would be honest. By Thursday morning, the Oak Street location opened to a smaller menu, shorter hours, and a noticeably quieter energy. Word had already spread among the staff that the owner himself had stepped in, but no one was quite sure what came next. The previous leadership was gone, but the void they left behind wasn't instantly filled just because a few faces had changed. People still looked over their shoulders. They still whispered. The wounds were fresh, and Carson knew it would take more than a few promises to rebuild trust. He arrived before the first prep shift, not in disguise this time, but in the same hoodie and jeans he'd worn undercover. Familiar now. He set up a folding table near the break room and placed a black binder on top. A handwritten sign taped to the wall behind it read, "Feedback. Written or verbal. No names required." By 8:30, Arturo entered carrying 2 bags from the fish market. He placed them on the prep station and nodded toward the binder without looking up. Some of the guys already wrote stuff in there, he said. Didn't sign it. Hope that's all right. That's the point, Carson said.
No filters.
Arturo unpacked the fish, laying out fresh cuts on the chilled board. The difference was visible: the color, the smell, the texture. You didn't need to be an expert to tell this was a step up. That vendor you mentioned, they're good, Carson added. They deliver early if you ask. Told them we'd keep ordering daily if they keep the quality.
Done.
In the back hallway, Carson found Jean rinsing a tray of cutlery slowly, using both hands now instead of favoring one. She didn't notice him at first. You're not on dishes today, he said. I know, she replied. Just wanted to finish the morning load before the new guy gets here. Didn't want him walking into a mess. Appreciate it, but you shouldn't overdo it. She dried her hands, then turned. I read the schedule. I saw the cut in hours across the board. People are nervous about that. It's temporary. We're scaling to what we can handle until staffing is stable. Jean gave a small nod. Just don't forget to tell people that directly. Otherwise, They'll assume we're getting punished for someone else's mess. Carson paused. You're right. He spent the next hour walking table to table during prep, speaking to each staff member about what was changing and why. Not in a group meeting, he knew better than to ask people to open up in front of their coworkers right away. Instead, one by one, he listened. Even when they didn't say much, he stayed long enough to make it clear the door was open. At 10, the temporary floor manager arrived. Her name was
Imani.
Mid-40s, sharp eyes, and the kind of presence that filled a room without raising her voice. She'd run the Lincoln Park location for 3 years and was known for her clean operations and zero tolerance for nonsense. She stepped behind the host stand, scanned the layout, and immediately noticed something off. Why is Section 3 getting triple booked again? Devin, who had just clocked in, looked up from the screen. I think the system auto-loads it that way. It's been like that since I got here. Imani didn't hesitate. Then we fix it. You don't let software run the floor. You do. Devin adjusted the layout and glanced at her. What if someone changes it again later? Then you change it back again. And if they keep doing it, you come to me. We're not playing games here. She turned on her heel and walked toward the server station. Carson, watching from the bar, smiled slightly. At 11:30, the doors opened. The first lunch guest trickled in. The menu had been pared down to 20 items, all dishes that could be prepared quickly and with consistent quality. Specials were handwritten on a small board by the entrance. Naomi approached the host's stand mid-shift, her voice quiet. Guest at table 5 wants to speak to management. Says her salmon roll was too warm. Imani responded instantly. Did you serve it?
No.
Devin did. Then let's both go. They walked over together. The guest, a woman in a pressed blazer, looked irritated. I've been here before. The salmon's usually chilled. This wasn't. Imani nodded once. Thank you for letting us know. I'll have it remade immediately on the house. The woman softened slightly. I appreciate that. Back in the kitchen, Imani handed the ticket to Arturo. Run the salmon roll again. Tighten the chill time before plating. Arturo glanced at Carson. Noted. It's this humidity. I'll get someone on that fridge, Carson said, already pulling out his phone. By mid-afternoon, the new rhythm had started to form. It wasn't perfect, there were still delays, still small missteps, but people were no longer bracing for punishment. They were adjusting, responding. Around 3, Carson pulled Naomi aside near the storage room. Your service notes are sharp, he said. You've been keeping track of table wait times?
Yeah.
Just a habit. Helps me stay ahead. I want you to take over training for new hosts. Starting next week. We'll pay the differential. She blinked. Really? You've got the eye for it. And you're calm under pressure. We need that. She nodded, slower this time. Okay. I'll do it. During the evening lull, Carson stepped into the walk-in cooler to check the sensors, now logging temperature data every 30 minutes. As he scanned the digital readout, he heard someone enter behind him. It was Arturo. Fridge temps holding, he said. Vendors happy. They said we're the only ones who sent them a checklist before ordering. We'll keep doing that, Carson replied. We're not just fixing a reputation. We're building one. Arturo leaned against the metal shelf. You know people still don't trust it'll last. They've seen too many quick changes that fade in a month. I'm not asking for trust today, Carson said. Just consistency. If we show up every day, it'll come. Arturo gave a short nod and left without another word. Later that night, after closing, Imani locked the front doors and turned to Carson. You've got a solid core here now. But you need 2 more full-time hires if you want to keep pace. And a new assistant manager, someone who actually listens. I've got interviews lined up already, Carson said. And I want her input on every single one. She raised an eyebrow. You sure you want me vetting? That's why I asked. She nodded once. All right. Let's do it right. Before leaving, Carson walked to the break room and opened the feedback binder. It was nearly half full already. He flipped through the pages, stopping at one written in messy block letters. Never thought someone would actually listen. Please don't stop now. He closed the binder gently. Outside, the city lights buzzed softly against the night sky. Carson stood on the sidewalk, watching as the last of the staff filtered out, chatting in low voices. No one rushed off. No one looked down. He reached for his keys, paused, and looked up at the glowing sign above the restaurant door. The family names still shone there unchanged. But now, for the first time in a long while, it felt like it meant something again.